She was a broke, single mom who texted the wrong number, begging for just $40 to buy milk for her baby. But what happened next? A total stranger showed up at her door, not just with formula, but with an offer that would turn her entire life upside down. A job, a future, a love story she never saw coming. But then, her past came knocking, with blackmail, betrayal, and a secret that could destroy everything she just built. What if the wrong number was the beginning of everything right? If this story caught your heart, don't scroll away. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next twist. Comment below with what you would do if you were in her shoes. And hey, share this with someone who believes in second chances. Let's keep these stories alive. The baby wouldn't stop crying. Lina Torres sat cross-legged on the cold kitchen floor, rocking her body gently as she cradled her 6-month-old son, Leo, in her arms. His cries were raw and painful, echoing off the cracked tile and thin apartment walls like sirens in an empty tunnel. She hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. But that didn't matter. What mattered was Leo hadn't had formula since morning. That can had run dry, and she couldn't even afford to buy a new one. Not even the smallest one at the corner store. Her phone battery blinked red at 4%. She looked over at the fridge, empty. The cabinet's 1 can of green beans. That was it. She whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby," over and over as if it might soothe him. It didn't. Nothing did. It was after midnight. Outside, the December wind rattled the window pane like it was about to snap. Her apartment heater hadn't worked in weeks, and the landlord didn't answer calls anymore. She wrapped Leo tighter in his old, thinned-out blanket and rocked him harder. She'd called 3 shelters, all full. She had called every friend she hadn't already exhausted, and now she was out of options. Her hands shook as she picked up her cheap burner phone. It was all she could afford after selling her old smartphone. She opened the contacts list and stared at the name she swore she'd never touch again. Adrian Vale, Leo's father. The man who disappeared the second she told him she was pregnant. The man who said, "Don't contact me again," and meant it. But pride doesn't feed babies. And Leo's screams were softening now. Not from comfort, he was running out of energy. She took a deep breath, wiped her eyes, and started typing. Adrian. I wouldn't be reaching out if I wasn't completely desperate. Leo hasn't eaten since this morning. I just need $40 to buy formula. I'll pay you back. Please, just this once. Her thumb hovered over the send button. Her heart pounded. This wasn't about him. This was about her son. She hit send. A long silence. Then a terrible thought struck her like a slap to the face. She squinted at the screen. The number. It wasn't Adrian's. She stared harder. It was off. 1 digit wrong. She must have mistyped it in her panic. Her stomach flipped. Her mouth went dry. No, she whispered. 2 blue check marks appeared. Read. Oh God, she gasped, clutching the phone against her chest, like it could undo what just happened. Oh my God. No, no, no. She unlocked the phone again. Her fingers flew across the screen. I'm sorry, that message wasn't for you. Wrong number. Please just delete it. Her face was burning. Her ears rang. What had she done? She just poured her shame and desperation into a message and sent it to a complete stranger. The phone buzzed again. Her hands froze. One new message. Are you serious about the baby needing formula? She blinked at the screen. What I told you, I sent it to the wrong number. She typed quickly. Please just ignore it. I'm sorry to bother you. Her hands were sweaty. Her pulse drummed in her ears. What kind of person responds to a message like that? Seconds passed. Then, I'm not ignoring it. Do you need help or not? Lina stared at the words. She had no idea who this person was. They didn't offer money, just help. What did that mean? No thank you, she typed. I'll figure it out. Please don't worry. She pressed send and put the phone down, trying to slow her breathing. This was a disaster. She shouldn't have reached out to anyone, especially not someone she didn't know. She looked at Leo, who was now barely fussing. He was exhausted. She kissed his forehead. We're gonna be okay, she whispered, lying to both of them. Buzz. The phone again. She snatched it up. Are you in New York, Bronx area? Her chest tightened. How did they know she hadn't shared her location? Had she? She scrolled back. She hadn't. They were guessing. Was that better or worse? She didn't respond. She couldn't. Then another message. Listen, if this is real, if you really have a hungry baby, send me your address. I'll bring formula. That's all. No strings. Lina stared at the message for a long time. Her first instinct was to shut it all down, to throw the phone across the room, block the number, delete everything. But then she looked at Leo again. His little body was limp, his tiny fingers twitching under the blanket. She hadn't seen him this quiet, ever. Not like this. Not from comfort, from exhaustion. She hesitated. Was it stupid? Dangerous, yes. Maybe. But it was also her last hope. She typed slowly, her address. She hit send, and whispered, "Please, let this be the right kind of wrong." She wasn't expecting him to actually show up. Lina had barely finished typing her address when doubt hit her like a truck. What if this was a scam? What if she'd just invited a stranger to her door at midnight with her baby inside? But she was too tired to care. Too desperate. Too broke. The apartment buzzed with silence now. Leo was finally asleep, curled up against her chest, his tiny body warm and light. She didn't move, didn't even breathe too loud. It was the first moment of peace she'd had in hours. Then, knock, knock, knock. Lina's heart stopped. She turned her head slowly toward the door. 3 short, firm knocks, not frantic, not playful, calm, controlled. She stood up gently, setting Leo in the baby carrier beside the couch. He stirred, but didn't cry. She crept toward the door, her bare feet cold on the floor. Her hand hovered above the doorknob. For a full 5 seconds, she just stood there debating. Then she opened it. There he was. Tall, sharp suit, dark wool coat, a fresh haircut, clean-shaven. He looked like a man who lived on the top floor of a skyscraper. A man who signed papers that moved millions. His car was still idling outside a sleek black SUV with out-of-state plates. Expensive, new, silent. But what caught her off guard wasn't the suit or the car or even the fact that he was holding 2 full grocery bags. It was his eyes. They weren't cold. They weren't judgmental. They were, still, steady. Like he'd seen worse than her, Lina Torres. He asked, voice low but clear. She nodded slowly. I brought some things. He lifted the bags just enough to show her the contents. Baby formula diapers. Wipes, even a little stuffed giraffe. Her breath hitched. She didn't know what to say. I didn't think you'd actually come. May I come in? He asked, like it was the most normal question in the world. For a second she hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered without making a sound, set the bags on her tiny kitchen table, glanced around without saying a word. His eyes didn't linger on the cracked walls, the flickering light bulb, or the duct-taped window. I'm Damian Quinn, he said, turning toward her. You texted me by mistake. She nodded again, her mouth suddenly dry. Yeah, I thought I was texting. Someone else. He didn't ask who. Didn't push. Instead, he walked over to the bags and pulled out the formula. This one's pre-mixed. No boiling water needed. She just stared at him. Why are you doing this? He paused, meeting her eyes. Because you asked. Lina blinked. People didn't just help you because you asked. That wasn't how the world worked. Not in her world. Not in the Bronx. Not for girls who barely finished community college and waited tables to survive. She took the can from him, still unsure whether this was a dream or a setup. Your baby? He asked. How old? 6 months. She replied quietly. Leo. He nodded. He okay? She looked toward the carrier. Sleeping now, finally. Damian offered a small smile. The first one she saw. It wasn't warm exactly, but it wasn't fake. You don't have to pay me back, he said, before she could say anything. I wasn't going to, she replied instinctively, then immediately regretted it. I mean, sorry, that came out wrong. I didn't expect this. He looked almost amused. I didn't expect to be here either. Silence hung between them, but not a bad kind. Lina finally asked, So, what do you do? He glanced at his watch. I run a company, software development, mostly AI platforms and security. Her eyebrows rose. So, you're a tech guy. I'm the guy who hires tech guys. Must pay well, she said, half joking, gesturing to his coat. He gave a one-shoulder shrug. It pays enough to buy baby formula at midnight. She laughed just a little. It surprised her. You don't have to stay, she said. Really, you've done more than enough. He studied her face a moment. I'll go. But, one last thing. What? He pulled something from his coat pocket. A business card. Just in case you ever need anything. Job leads, daycare referrals, recommendations, use this. She stared at the card. It felt heavy in her hand. Are you serious? She asked. Dead serious. She hesitated, then whispered, thank you. He nodded and turned toward the door. Good night, Lina. And just like that, he was gone. She closed the door behind him and leaned her back against it. The apartment was quiet again. Her eyes scanned the table. Formula, diapers, wipes, a giraffe. Who the hell was this guy? 2 days passed. Lina hadn't expected to hear from him again. And honestly, part of her hoped she wouldn't. She couldn't afford to owe favors to men in suits who handed out business cards like magic tickets. But Monday morning, her routine hit different. She dropped Leo off at the free daycare across from her building, thankfully the last spot they had, and made her way to work. It wasn't glamorous. It never was. Just another shift cleaning offices in a massive corporate tower downtown. Pushcart mop bucket badge swipe. She clocked in at 5:45 a.m., same as always. The world was still half asleep. Lights dimmed, coffee machines just starting to buzz. Lina tied her hair back and headed to the 29th floor, the executive level. She'd been assigned there that week. And that's when she saw him again. Damian Quinn, standing by the window of the CEO office. She froze. Her heart flipped. Of all floors, of all days. He turned. Their eyes met. Good morning, he said, like they were old colleagues. Lina cleared her throat. Hi, you work here? He asked. Yeah. Been here 2 weeks, she answered, gripping the handle of her cart like it was holding her up. He nodded. Makes sense now. What does you? He pointed at her ID badge. The message, the apartment, everything. She forced a smile. I didn't expect to see you again. I did, he said casually, because I asked HR to check if Alina Torres worked here. She blinked. You? What I wanted to make sure you were okay, he said, and I also wanted to ask you something. Her eyes narrowed. Like what? He walked toward her, not in a threatening way, more like someone handling glass. My assistant just quit. Walked out, no notice. And I remembered how calm you were, how you handled everything that night, how direct you are. That's rare. You want me to clean your office? She asked, confused. I want you to assist me, he said. Officially. Silence. Her head spun. Me? Like, be your assistant. It comes with training, flexible hours, health benefits, a real salary. She laughed an awkward, sharp sound. I don't even have a degree. I don't care, Damian replied flatly. I care that you're smart, focused, and probably better at handling chaos than half my staff. Lina took a step back. I'm not qualified. You will be. Her chest tightened. This couldn't be real. She looked down at her uniform navy overalls bleach stain on the sleeve. Her boots were worn down at the soles. Her fingers smelled like floor cleaner. Why me? She asked again, softer this time. Because you remind me of me. Before the suits. It hit her right in the gut. She didn't answer, just stared. I'll give you 48 hours, he said, pulling a fresh card from his pocket. If you're interested, meet me Wednesday. 9 a.m., same floor. My office. Then he turned and walked away like he hadn't just cracked open the floor beneath her feet. Lina didn't sleep that night. She paced. She cried. She questioned everything. Who did she think she was? She didn't belong in an office like that. She didn't talk like them, dress like them, think like them. But Leo, he was the reason she worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, stayed quiet. He was the reason she never stopped moving. And maybe, just maybe, he could be the reason she said yes. Wednesday came. She didn't wear a suit, didn't have one, but she wore her cleanest white blouse, tied her hair up neatly, and put on her best shoes, even if the soles were taped inside. She held her head high as she walked past the front desk and pressed the button for floor 29. She thought about turning around 3 times before the elevator doors opened, but she didn't. When she stepped inside Damien's office, he didn't ask why she came. He just handed her a binder and said, "Day 1 starts now." The next few weeks were brutal. She trained under his interim assistant Maya, who clearly didn't like the idea of some cleaning girl taking a desk next to the CEO. She made sure Lina knew it too. "You know he only hired you out of pity, right?" she whispered one morning. Lina didn't answer. Every email she typed, she reread 5 times. Every meeting she scheduled, she double-checked the time zone. Every document, every coffee run, every phone call, she handled it like she was saving someone's life. But they still talked. Who is she? Why is she in the CEO's office? Did she sleep her way in? Lina heard it all, and still showed up, because this wasn't about them. It was about Leo. And for once in her life, maybe it was also about her. The day started like any other. Lina buzzed through meetings, coordinated Damien's calendar, and reviewed vendor invoices while sipping her 3rd cup of office coffee. She had been on the job for almost a month now, and while the rumors hadn't stopped, she had learned to shut them out. She was focused, efficient, in control. Until she saw him. She had just stepped out of the elevator on the 14th floor AT support when her eyes locked with a man near the stairwell. He wore a baseball cap pulled low, a leather jacket zipped up to his throat. But she'd recognize that slouch anywhere. Adrian Vale. Her heart stopped. Her fingers went ice cold. He ducked his head and turned away fast, but not before she saw the smug curve of his mouth. He wanted her to see him. He planned this. She turned on her heel and practically sprinted back to the elevator, jamming the close doors button like it was her last lifeline. Her hands shook. Her chest caved inward. That face, she hadn't seen it in nearly a year. She prayed she'd never see it again. But now he was here, at her job. That night, he waited. Outside the daycare. Lina stepped out with Leo in her arms, and there he was leaning against a rusted red truck, arms crossed like he belonged there. She froze. Adrian smirked. "Nice office you've got upstairs." Her throat went dry. "What are you doing here?" "Checking on my son," he said. "You know the one you named without asking me." "You left," she snapped. "You gave up that right." "Yeah, well, maybe I changed my mind." She clutched Leo tighter. "Get away from us." He stepped forward. "Relax. I'm not here to take them yet." Her stomach flipped. "I've been watching you, Lina. Fancy title. New wardrobe. Playing secretary for Mr. Moneybags. Must be nice. You don't get to comment on my life." "Oh, but I do," he said, voice dropping to a whisper. "Because if I decide to file for custody, I have rights. And judges don't usually like single moms who got cozy with their billionaire boss." Lina's blood ran cold. "You wouldn't, I would. Unless you do me a little favor." She blinked. "What kind of favor?" He leaned closer, eyes dark. "You know people in high places now. Help me land a job in one of Damien's tech subsidiaries. Mid-level, nothing flashy. I get hired, I disappear. No court, no custody fight. Win, win." She backed away. "You're insane." He smirked again. "No, just desperate, like you were that night you begged me for $40. That punch landed harder than she expected. He turned and walked away like nothing had happened, leaving her standing there, arms wrapped around her child, heart racing, fear crawling up her spine. For the next week, Lina barely slept. Every time her phone buzzed, she panicked. She kept looking over her shoulder. At work, she was distracted, distant, jumping at shadows. She didn't tell Damien. She couldn't. This would ruin everything. She thought maybe she could handle it alone. But Damien noticed. He wasn't blind. After a tense budget review on Thursday, he closed the conference room door behind them and looked her dead in the eye. "What's going on with you?" She blinked. "What do you mean, you're not sleeping? You missed a client call, and yesterday you forgot to book the car service for my flight." Lina opened her mouth, then closed it again. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just looked at her steady and calm like always. "You're not okay," he said. "Talk to me." She swallowed hard. Her hands balled into fists. Every instinct told her to lie. But then she heard Leo's soft laugh in her memory, saw Adrian's smirk, and something cracked. "I saw someone," she whispered. "Someone from before." Damien said nothing, just waited. "His name's Adrian. He's Leo's father." That word father tasted like rust. "He walked out when I was pregnant, never answered a call. But now he's back, and he's threatening to take Leo." Damien's jaw flexed. "He said if I don't help him get a job at your company, he'll take me to court, try to win custody. And you didn't tell me because—" She looked down. "Because I didn't want you to think I brought trouble into your company, or into your life." He stepped closer. "Lina, you are not the problem here." She looked up. "I don't make decisions out of pity," Damien continued. "I hired you because you're smart. I kept you because you earned it. And if someone thinks they can threaten my staff, my people, they're going to learn. That's a very bad idea." For the first time in days, her shoulders loosened. "You're not alone in this," he said. "Not anymore." Lina exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Maybe she was stronger than she thought. Maybe she didn't have to run. Not this time. Lina never expected to stumble onto something this big. It started with numbers. For weeks, she'd been managing Damien's personal scheduling and filtering internal financial reports before sending them off to his board liaison. One morning, she spotted something odd in the quarterly statements, just a small discrepancy. A wire transfer that didn't match any budget category. $17,200. It wasn't listed as payroll vendor payment or executive reimbursement. She double-checked, then triple-checked. At first, she thought it was a mistake, but 3 days later, it happened again. This time, $24,600. And then again. Different amounts, different dates, always filtered through a shell consulting company named MZ Strategies, LLC, with no clear point of contact. The routing number, offshore. Her instincts kicked in. She pulled archived reports from the last 2 quarters and started connecting the dots. By 2:00 a.m., her apartment floor was covered in spreadsheets, printouts, and sticky notes. Leo slept soundly beside her, unaware his mom had just uncovered a money trail deep enough to bury someone. The next morning, she marched straight into Damien's office. "I found something," she said, heart pounding. He paused mid-sentence on a call. "What kind of something?" She handed him the folder. Within minutes, he went silent. His eyes narrowed. "These are internal," he muttered. "How did you get access? I asked the finance intern to forward me raw exports. Said you wanted a clean copy for end-of-quarter planning." He glanced at her, half impressed, half concerned. "And you found this? By accident?" "No," she said. "By instinct." He shut the file. "We're launching a formal audit. Now." 2 days later, everything blew up. The internal audit confirmed Lina's suspicions and revealed more. Nearly $600,000 had been funneled into false vendor accounts over the past year, all of them tied to MZ Strategies, LLC. All of them greenlit by one person, Hugo Mendez, Damien's senior executive assistant, the man who'd been by Damien's side for 8 years, trusted with confidential data, payroll access, strategy decks, security codes. Lina's stomach twisted. "I don't get it," she whispered after the board meeting that evening. Why would he risk everything? Damien's face was stone. Because he wasn't working alone. That night, Damien called her into his office. The door shut, the blinds closed. He looked different, more guarded, angrier, focused. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, "and I need you to brace yourself." Lina sat down. Damien dropped a folder on the table. Photos, transcripts, surveillance reports. Her blood turned cold. Adrian, Hugo, together, coffee shop meetings, secure emails, recorded phone calls. They'd been in contact for months. Adrian had offered Hugo a deal, help him discredit Damien, and they'd split the fallout. Hugo would walk away with stolen stock options and a cut of whatever Adrian could blackmail out of Lina. It wasn't just about money. It was about revenge. Adrian had learned Damien was the one helping Lina, the one who showed up with formula, the one who gave her a job, a future. That had made Adrian furious. He wanted control again. And Hugo? He wanted the seat Damien sat in. "You were the pawn," Damien said quietly. "The plan was to use you, shake you, force you to comply, Scare you into handing over company credentials. Lina felt sick. I don't understand. I didn't give them anything, I know, Damien said. But they were counting on you folding under pressure. You didn't. Lina stood up. Her body trembled. So now what? What do we do? We fight, Damien replied. And we win. The next morning, Lina walked into the building with her chin high. Everyone knew something was happening. Word spread fast. Hugo had been suspended. Investigators were crawling through accounts. The board had called an emergency session. And Damien? He was backing her. For the first time in a long time, Lina felt like she wasn't just surviving. She was standing up. She was part of something bigger than fear. Later that day, as she walked past the security desk, she saw Hugo being escorted out of the building. He didn't look angry. He looked defeated. But Adrian, he was still out there, waiting, plotting. And Lina knew this wasn't over yet. But she also knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wasn't the same scared woman who begged for $40. She was a mother, a fighter. And she wasn't backing down. The boardroom lights flickered. Everyone had gathered, legal teams, finance execs, security officers, all pretending this was just another day at the office. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. One that Damien and Lina had quietly built for weeks. This wasn't just about missing money anymore. This was about justice. And it was time to flip the script. It started with a setup. Damien, working behind the scenes with the FBI, had baited a fake contract, an exclusive acquisition deal worth $3 million. A deal too big, too clean, and too tempting for Hugo to ignore. The files were placed inside a restricted server. Only Damien and Hugo had access. It was bait. All they needed was for Hugo to bite. Lina played her part flawlessly. She made sure Hugo overheard the right conversation, left the wrong files open just long enough on a shared drive, acted jittery on purpose, faked being distracted, all to make it look like the company was hiding something major and sloppy about it. It worked. On Friday at exactly 8:42 a.m., Hugo logged in from an off-site IP to access the deal folder. He thought no one saw him. He thought he was a genius. And then boom. The FBI stormed into the satellite office. 3 plainclothes agents walked in, calmly, badges out. Hugo didn't even have time to close his laptop. You're under arrest for corporate fraud, identity misrepresentation, and attempted embezzlement, one agent said coolly while cuffing his wrists. Hugo's eyes darted around the room. What? You don't understand. This is all a setup. Yes, one agent replied. It is. Click. The cuffs locked. But it didn't end there. 3 hours later, another arrest made headlines. Adrian Vale detained in a sting operation across town, charged with blackmail, conspiracy to defraud, and child endangerment. He was handcuffed outside a gas station mid-phone call trying to negotiate a wire transfer from one of Hugo's burner accounts. The arrogance finally caught up to him. Lina found out the moment it happened. Damien pulled her into his office and handed her a sealed report. It's done, he said. She stared at the headlines on the tablet screen. They got him, both of them. She didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then a quiet exhale. Relief. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I thought I'd be scared, she said, but I'm not. I'm just free. Damien nodded slowly. You earned that. Later that week, the board convened. It was supposed to be a vote of no confidence, standard protocol when a company faces internal scandal. But this time, the tables had turned. Damien stood tall. He explained everything: the fraud, the internal audit, the FBI coordination. And then he introduced the person who helped him uncover it all. Lina Torres. The room went quiet. Some board members looked confused, others skeptical. She started as a custodian, Damien said, but she became the reason we're still standing. Her instincts, her courage, her resilience. They saved this company more than our entire legal team combined. Someone clapped, then another. Within seconds, the room filled with applause. 2 days later, Lina got the email. Subject: Executive Promotion Consideration. Confidential. She opened it with shaking hands. Dear Ms. Torres, We are pleased to inform you that the board has nominated you for the position of Senior Executive Assistant to the CEO effective immediately. Your contribution to this organization has not gone unnoticed. With respect and admiration, the board of directors. She sat in stunned silence. Leo cooed in his crib beside her. She looked down at the email again, then laughed a soft, stunned sound. From cleaning floors to exposing fraud. From begging for baby formula to being celebrated by millionaires. She had done it, on her own terms. That Friday, Damien took her out to lunch. Not as boss and assistant, just two people who had walked through hell and made it out alive. As they sipped coffee at a quiet rooftop cafe, Lina looked out over the city skyline and finally let herself breathe. "You okay?" Damien asked. She nodded. "Yeah, better than I've ever been." He smiled. "You ready for what's next?" She didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." Spring arrived early that year. The cold had finally broken, and the city was beginning to bloom again. Trees budding, cafe patios reopening, and sunshine lingering longer than usual. But for Lina, it wasn't just the weather that was changing. It was everything. Her life, once full of fear, debt, and unanswered texts, was now filled with something she'd nearly forgotten how to feel. Peace, and maybe love. She didn't know when it shifted. Maybe it was in the way Damien started showing up at Leo's daycare pickups just to help, or the way his hand lingered a second longer when passing her a coffee, or how he always remembered to bring her favorite granola bar to meetings, the one no one else liked. They never talked about it, not directly, not until that night. They were at a quiet bistro, tucked into a side street of Brooklyn, away from boardrooms, away from rumors. Just two people who had survived a storm. The conversation had slowed. Their plates were cleared. Leo was home with a sitter. It was just them under soft lights and the sound of jazz trickling from a speaker above. Damien shifted in his seat, exhaled slowly, and finally spoke. "I didn't just fall for you, Lina." She looked up. "I fell for both of you." Her breath caught. Damien's voice stayed steady, but there was something different in his eyes. Raw, real. "I know it's been complicated, and I never wanted to cross a line. But every time I see you with Leo, every time you stand your ground even when you're scared out of your mind, I feel it more." Lina blinked fast. "Damien, you don't have to say anything right now. I just needed you to know." But she didn't hesitate. She reached across the table, took his hand, and said, "You gave me more than a job. You gave me safety. You gave us a chance." And for the first time in a very long time, Lina let herself fall too. Months passed. Their relationship stayed quiet, not because they were hiding, but because they were protecting something rare, something sacred. Leo adored Damien. He'd squeal every time he saw him, arms stretched wide, screaming D across rooms. Damien would scoop him up, without hesitation, like he'd been waiting for that hug all day. They were a family before they even called themselves one. And then, on a crisp Sunday afternoon in early May, it happened. A small backyard, strings of lights, a few friends, no media, no board members, no fancy speeches, just a wedding arch covered in wildflowers, and one little boy running barefoot across the lawn with a cupcake in each hand. "Mommy." "Look, Leo," yelled icing smeared across his nose. Lina and Damien burst out laughing right in the middle of their vows. It was messy. It was perfect. It was them. As the sun dipped low and their closest friends gathered for the final toast, Lina looked at the man beside her, the man she once accidentally texted for baby formula, and with a soft smile, she whispered the words that had been living in her heart since that first knock on her door. That wrong number became our lucky one. Life lesson from a wrong number. Sometimes the most life-changing moments come from accidents, a text sent to the wrong number, a door opened to a stranger, a single yes in the middle of fear. Lina's story reminds us that rock bottom isn't the end, it's the turning point. In a world where so many feel invisible or judged by where they come from, this story proves one thing: character is louder than circumstance. Lina didn't just survive, she rose. Not because someone saved her, but because someone believed in her. And that belief lit a fire in her she didn't even know was there. Damien didn't fall for perfection. He fell for strength, for resilience, for the quiet kind of courage that keeps going for your child, your future, your dignity. So if you're in a tough place right now, don't give up. Your wrong number might just be life dialing in something bigger. What would you do if you got that message by mistake? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe for more stories that restore your faith in people.